name is Nolan Sitz. I'm joined with my colleague Tang Long, and we're both architects with Solomon Cordwell Buenz. We're excited to present 16310 Northeast 80th for our first DRB meeting. As the architect, we're representing our client Voyager. Over the next 7 minutes, we want to give you an introduction to the building, go through our initial massing studies, talk about our design inspiration, and how we decided to compose all of it together. Located at 80th and Leary Way, the site is a little over 55,000 square feet with a Type 9 pedestrian system running through the center of it. We're located in the town square district, a couple blocks away from the downtown park, light rail station, and adjacent to Old Town Redmond. Looking at the building massing, we started with a U-shaped courtyard that faces south, 272 units above and 272 parking spaces below. To be good neighbors and create better units, we push the wings of the building in to create 3 courtyards. This creates more open space and gets more natural light in all 3 developments. The result is a pie-shaped looking plan. We also added a pedestrian system running through the center of it. To create visual interest along 80th, we took the east wing and rotated it 6 degrees to capture great views of Mount Rainier and break up the building geometry along the street. Lastly, we elongated the east wing and extended it to 81st, so there was a strong connection between the 2 facades. This is a street perspective of our building looking west on 80th. The street has a great scale to it, but is filled with buildings that are 90 degrees. So rotating it off of its axis became one of the strong concepts behind this project. And this is the street perspective with our proposed materials. We call it the wooden jewel box, as it perches above the podium. Zooming out, the building is 355,000 square feet, 272 units, and 272 parking spaces. To bonus up to 8 floors, we're proposing to dedicate 20% of the ground level towards open space in the form of a daycare or community room. Architecturally, the design of the building was inspired by the history of Redmond, both the original masonry buildings that are still there today and Redmond as a logging outpost. Looking at some of the older, more traditional buildings, there's always a clear top, middle, and base. And being so close to old Redmond, we wanted to acknowledge that within our architecture. So on the left is a more traditional building meant to mimic stone. Diagrammatically, this is how it looks: top, middle, and base. And this is what it looks like close up with the jointing and materials. While the facade on the left is more traditional, the wing on the right is intended to be its modern counterpoint: wood, rotated, and cube-like.
And this is the overall elevation facing south along the 80th. You will see a more traditional masonry-like building on the west, the pedestrian system in the center, residential lobby, and finally the rotated wooden box on top. And along the 81st Street, we are bringing the wooden jewel box back, which helps to break down the mass, so it feels like 3 smaller forms instead of 1. These are the materials and palette we're proposing. It's mostly made up of fiber cement panels with different textures and densities that will look good over the test of time. The palette itself is warm, friendly, and feels very residential to us. So the site naturally divides itself into 2 parts with the pedestrian system running through the center. On the west is the daycare or community room, and on the east is the residential lobby, residential unit, parking, and loading. We are proposing a 20-foot wide one-way U-nerve that is safe and welcoming for cars, bicycles, and pedestrians. To slow down traffic, we are proposing the U-nerve meander through the site with parallel parking for both residential lobby and daycare. Access to parking is off of the U-nerve and 81st Street. And we purposely positioned the residential lobby next to the U-nerve so that there will be eyes on it and it will feel very safe. To reinforce this concept, we are proposing a stamped concrete for the flooring and a tall glass window to blur the lines between indoor and out. So when it comes to the design of the U-nerve, we were inspired by the proven traffic calming streetscapes, the warm lighting that makes the space feel welcoming, a high degree of transparency between the adjoining spaces, and some accent lighting to create more interest. So this is the rendering of our thoughts on how the space could look. It's about 30 feet wide in total and 11 feet tall. The warm materials on the surround with transparent glass on both sides so that it feels very active day and night. And zooming out, you can see how it glows in the evening. And taking another step back, you can see the entrance to the U-nerve lobby the wooden jewel box all together. This is the typical residential level. You'll notice the 3 courtyards on the south, leaving enough room for natural light to get to the back side of the building. And on the next page is our amenity plan, which sits on top of the parking garage and deck. The amenity is positioned in the center with direct access to both courtyards. Lastly, we want to land on this image where you can see the 3 buildings side by side. We love the juxtaposition of a more traditional stone-looking building on the left versus the modern rotated box on the right. Thank you for your time and consideration. We look forward to hearing your thoughts on this very exciting project.